I'm a little slappy.
And the home of the brave.
Game on!
Welcome to episode 46 of the Hit the Deck podcast, where we talk deck hockey, street hockey, ball hockey. It's hockey in sneakers. Another week, another Hit the Deck podcast, another chance for James and I to say thank you so very much for listening. James, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How about yourself?
I can't complain too much, or at least I won't. We all can, I'm sure, but nobody wants to hear us complain. They want to hear us talk about hockey, yeah? I mean, I assume that's why people listen. I can't think of any other reason.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Yep, so what's going on?
Not much, man. Just hopefully keeping my fingers crossed that we actually play some deck hockey this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. With the snow still on the ground, it's not looking great, but it has been melting some, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, come on, deck hockey gods, help us out, please.
Yeah, come on, Mother Nature. I hope Mother Nature's a hockey mom.
Yeah, seriously, especially because the American Rhino has some great goodies planned for the LIQ, and I'm dying to find out what they are, so I'm sure everybody else is as well. And
I'm sure.
Let's go!
You know what else we have some goodies planned for this show? We've got a lot to talk about, so why don't we get right to it? And would you be so kind as to... Oh, no, you know what? I'm jumping the gun, aren't I? We haven't even introduced ourselves. I can't ask you to tell us what's going on in the show if we haven't introduced ourselves. It's just rude. I'm a rude person, and I apologize. All right, well, maybe I should introduce myself. Maybe I should. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be just peachy? I don't know why I'm antagonizing the listener for something that I forgot to do. It's not your fault. I'm just absent-minded. I'm an absent-minded rhino. Anyway, so let's jump into the starting lineup. For tonight's starting lineup, as ever, in goal, I am number 35, the American Rhino, Gary McComiskey, and of course, my very patient co-host.
On defense, number 4, I'm James Sajazi.
Yes, James. Okay, now, I think it is now okay. It's officially okay to ask if you wouldn't mind putting up with my nonsense and also telling us what is on deck for this particular podcast.
I will be happy to, Coach.
Thank you.
Scarface. The last time we played deck, weeks and weeks and weeks ago, the American Rhino ended up getting a scar on his fist. The coolest thing about that badge of honor was it looked like an angry tough guy face. Most appropriate and well earned by the American Rhino. Deck hockey resolution checkup number 1. As promised, I will give you an update on my deck hockey resolution, preferably during the first Hit the Deck to air of each month. Checkup 1 was cut from the last couple of podcasts because of time constraints, so the first update is coming up in HTD 46. Bandwagon. As is so often the case in sports, it gets streaky. After not climbing on in almost a year, the American Rhino and I are back on the bandwagon for the second straight Hit the Deck. Michel Therrien was axed by the Montreal Canadiens and replaced by recently available head coach Claude Julien. Again. We'll delve into that amazing coincidence, and we want to know what you think of it too. And watch it, pal! In anticipation of Slapshot's 40th anniversary, which Gary and I will celebrate as part of next week's HTD, we have a fascinating hockey movie you should check out. The film is called The Last Gladiators and is a documentary on the hard career and life of NHL enforcer Chris Nyland. It is available on Amazon Prime and is free with subscription, just to make sure the kids aren't around when you watch. And that's what's on deck.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. That sounds like a very full show, so we should probably get to getting on that.
Well, yes, sir.
All right. So I hear tell that I have an interesting injury to discuss.
Yeah, trying not to be too macho here, so apologies to any of the female listeners out there. But one of the cool things in that guys like to, I don't know, just speaking for myself, I guess it's always kind of a badge of honor, if you will, if you get a scar from doing something cool. Like if you get a scar on your chin from falling down on the concrete because you were clumsy, that's stupid. But if you get a scar on your chin because you blocked a shot or you were playing baseball and you got hit in the jaw or something like that, then that's cool. It's something to talk about. It gives you character, if you will.
I have a scar on my chin from getting hit in the chin with a glass bottle during a play. Where does that rank on the scale of cool?
Man, the fact that you are a tough cookie, man. I'll tell you that. That's where it ranks. It ranks 10 out of 10 because if you get nailed with a glass bottle, especially if you're not expecting it, and I'm sure you carried on with the show, right? Did you even miss a beat?
No. I was apparently bleeding all over everybody for the first act.
Yeah, right, but it didn't stop you.
It wasn't even a performance. It was a dress rehearsal.
Oh, God bless.
Oh.
But, yeah, I mean, Gary is way too humble. And just to let you know, he's playing hurt tonight, too, because he's under the weather. But playing goalie in deck hockey, especially a butterfly goalie, which means his style is that he's going down a lot and is very physical and very hard on his knees. So Gary having pretty much 2 bad knees, right? I mean, with the braces and all that stuff.
I had bad knees before I started playing deck hockey from my days of high school track. So running on concrete for all those years. So yeah, I mean, this is just the icing on the cake, really. So
Gary's tolerance for pain is extremely high. I don't want anybody testing that, please. But he's a man's man, if you will. So. Oh yeah, that's me. I'm a real outdoorsman and I'm a man's man. Like, was it Steve Regal in the old WWF? He's a man. He's a man's man. That's me. Hey, you got Viking blood in you, man. So that's true. I am 1/4 Viking. So between that and having the nickname the American Rhino, you are not a man to mess with. So anyway, point being that he has a very high tolerance for pain, and all the times that he's getting hurt and playing hurt, he just never brings any attention to it, and a lot of times he will never ever use that as an excuse, and a lot of times we don't even realize it. So it's much appreciated. A couple of weeks ago when we did play, somehow you got a scar on your knuckle, and having the blocker and the glove on, it's kind of interesting how that came about. But the funny thing about it was it looked like an angry face. So if pardon my memory, but if you haven't posted it on Instagram yet, please do when you get a chance to show everybody what we're talking about. I haven't, and I will. Thank you, sir. To answer your question about how it happened, basically, my catching glove, I think I talked about this on the podcast before, but basically I had this, I think it's a Bauer catching glove that I got, but I could never break it in. So I just went back to my old Tor catching glove, which is very well broken in, but the strings keep coming apart and the flaps come open sometimes. So in this particular instance, the string came loose. I didn't realize. And I guess I had to drag the glove on the ground for some reason. I don't remember why. And at some point I scraped my knuckle, my left knuckle. And I only noticed because during intermission, one of my teammates came over and opined that I was bleeding. So I was like, oh, yeah, so I am. I guess I have to fix my glove. So, but yeah, when the game was over and, I cleaned off the blood, I noticed that it did, in fact, look like an angry face. And I thought that was kind of cool. So I suggested this segment, not so much because I'm a big, strong, tough guy, because I'm not, but because I thought that, it was kind of, as James said, it was kind of a cool, it's not even a scar really, because it's mostly faded. It was just more of a scratch than anything. But, I said to James, I think we could have a good segment about, whether you've had any cool kind of injuries or cool scars or, injuries that you're proud of or injuries that have a cool story attached to them. So I think this was less a cool story and more of just a cool happenstance. But James, is there anything that you're particularly proud of over the years or that has any particularly interesting story attached to it? Yeah, not really. And I preface this with being careful what I wish for. So right, of course. Yeah, I'm fine with not looking like the villain in Batman the Animated Series which was named Scarface, the ventriloquist doll who had that big gash on his cheek.
Yeah.
I don't want
Zaz, right?
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Zaz is a Batman villain he's like a serial killer who likes to kill people with knives, and for every person he kills, he cuts a slice into his skin to remember them by. So his whole body is just covered with like slices and scars from all the people he's killed. Anyway, this isn't the Hit the Bat podcast. That's not anyway. Sorry, please go on.
So. Well, that's a heck of a lot more interesting than what I was going to say. So I don't have any great scars or cool stories to go along with them. The only thing on my body is they're referred to as strawberries because they're basically like red blotches of. They're not really it's a permanent red blotch, I guess. It's not a scar proper, but on the right side of my body, like my hip and from diving on concrete, so I deserve that for being stupid to dive on concrete.
Wait, I know I realize that you dive on concrete all the time, and I think you're a crazy person for doing that. But you're telling me that you have permanent injuries to your skin from doing that? Stop doing that.
No, you're right.
It's not worth it.
Duly noted, and you're correct. I mean, it's mainly because I've really, my skin is kind of soft and like a baby. So you couple that with doing stupid things and bad things happen. So, but
now who's a real man's man, James?
No. Anyway, just
I get a little boo-boo on my knuckle. Oh, you're a real tough guy. Yeah. James slides around grating his skin like on a cheese grater. He's like, oh no, shucks.
Yeah, well, apparently a scar on your body is the equivalent of somebody else losing a limb, like in what's the movie?
Monty Python?
Holy Grail. Yes, exactly,
yeah.
Right. The Monty Python's Holy Grail.
But
anyway,
it really was merely a scratch.
Yeah, right. It's just a flesh wound. Meanwhile, somebody had to tell you were bleeding, and your first instinct was, "Oh, I got to fix my glove." Not even that. So anyway, no, I don't have anything cool to and I'm not going to show anybody these scars either, by the way.
Okay, good. I won't post them on Instagram.
Right, thank you.
Which, in case you need the reminder, we are at Hit the Deck on Instagram. So, please feel free to check out my scab.
Yeah, right.
That's marketing right there.
Sure. It's we've talked about this in HTD's past, but basically it's just to let everybody know out there that you do play with passion and you play hard. And like we said in last edition, that we play within the rules and stuff like that. So it's not to intimidate anybody. It's not to pat ourselves on the back, or it's just kind of like a conversation starter, I suppose. If you have a cool scar on your knuckle or your hand or something like that, and you can, hey, where did that come from? And then hey, I was playing deck hockey and made a save, and that's what happened. So
yeah, and if you have something cool, some cool story attached to an injury that you want to relate to us, please hit us up on the Facebook page at Hit the Deck, or email us at hitthedeck@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to talk about it on the show. So there's that.
Yes, sir.
So speaking of your general health and well-being, James.
Yeah.
How has your training been going?
It's been going well, except in the 3 games that I've played so far this year, I'm failing miserably. So I tried to set a goal of scoring an assist each game, and I'm 0 for 3 for that so far. So I don't think I recorded any points the first 3 games we played this year, and I'm looking to redeem that. And in terms of health and stuff, Gary was extremely generous to lend me the DDP yoga. So if wrestling fans out there familiar with the wrestler Diamond Dallas Page, he has an excellent yoga system that's set up for men and women. And I've never done yoga before in my life. It's something, I don't look it, but I've been exercising on and off for a majority of my time on this earth. But I've never, ever attempted to do yoga. It was just something that seemed, I thought that was a little green character from Star Wars, but something very,
No, that's the guy from Spaceballs, James.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. So yoga just seemed to be very foreign, and I thought exercising meant lifting weights and running and cardio and things of that nature.
Yeah, sure.
The cool thing, and Gary's used DDP for quite a few years and has benefited from it, and I think anybody can too. So the point of that is that it's DDP walks you through it. He makes it very attainable. He's extremely encouraging, not the least bit intimidating. He walks you through everything. You can take it at your own pace. He keeps reminding you of that, and he not only says that, but he does it too. He shows you. And as Gary also said, that many wrestlers swear by it, and it's a great system. I've just dipped my toe into it, so I've only done about 2 or 3 exercise or routines from it so far, and I'm kind of feeling the results already. It's really that quick, and for somebody, again, that I've never tried yoga in my life, Mr. Diamond Dallas Page made it very easy to follow, and you can follow it quickly. And you go at your own pace and you follow what he's saying, and the results will come. So you do have to put the work into it. But when you get the results, if you feel the results too, that's something you want to keep going on. So in that aspect of the DEK hockey resolution, that's going really well, especially thanks to Gary for lending me the DDP yoga system.
All right, great. And I just want to clarify a couple of things. Since you have been talking about it, the yoga, it's called a yoga system, but it's not like yoga in the traditional sense. It's a combination of traditional yoga poses with cardio and dynamic resistance exercises. And it's a very comprehensive workout. It's not like, namaste, kind of om, the usual stuff you think of when you think yoga. It's a lot more active than that. A lot more, I don't want to say a lot more of a workout, but I mean, it is. It's a lot more of it's a lot more of an activity, I guess, than traditional yoga, which is very like slow and meditative. This is a lot more, I don't know, aggressive, maybe. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but I can't think of a better way at present.
Well, yeah, exactly. Along the lines of what the American Rhino is saying is that, again, trying to emphasize that I never did yoga before in my life, and one of the things that I thought yoga was just that. It was slow, and you'd feel like you're falling asleep, and you're doing all these crazy maneuvers and stretches. And I can't stand stretching. It's vital and it's important, but I just don't have the patience for it. And again, the workouts I've done in my whole life and the sports that we play. I mean, DEK hockey, you're running around. There's always stuff to do. It's not like golf or something, as an example, which I do love golf as well. But you're right. It's resistance. You're using your own muscles, and from head to toe, you're shooting every fiber you got in your body. And you sweat. You get your heart rate up really rapidly. I could not believe how quickly just doing a couple of things gets your heart rate up so fast. And it's action packed. It's interesting, and it's fun too. If you hate exercising, or if you're looking to do something that's low impact, it's extremely, the idea of it is to go easy on your back and go easy on your muscle joints too. Like Gary's saying, his knees have barked on him since his running days in high school and things like that. And any retired baseball player you may hear of, especially if he's a catcher, has multiple injuries with his knees and his lower back. Hockey players, the same thing, lower back, knees, ankles. Mm-hmm. So DDP yoga is designed to exercise and stretch at the same time and strengthen and get your cardio. It's like, really, he does the diamond cutter and the bang and all that stuff. If you're familiar with Diamond Dallas Page, it's the full deal. It's great, all in one. And I thank you so much, Gary, for being so generous to lend it to me. And
yeah, sure.
I appreciate it very much. So
no problem.
Hopefully next time we play, maybe we could see the benefits of that, where the energy level is up. Because again, the last couple of games that we played, game 1 and 2, I was okay, but then as the afternoon progressed, my shots got weaker and they got more and more off the mark. I was slow to get to the corners, and as a defenseman, that is a big, big no-no. Was huffing and puffing a lot, and by the time the third game started, basically I was just married to the blue line. I could not run back and forth. I was out of breath, and my arms felt like they were being weighed down by instead of a hockey stick, like 100-pound pipe or something. So,
well, in your defense, James, it's also a function of the fact that a lot of the people that we play with have a good decade on you. So there's that.
Fair enough, but I was just glad that we had Tommy on our team because he's a young, energetic guy, and Rob too. He was on our team as well. So those guys were excellent, always being open and getting shots off and having plays going. And I was just kind of able to just stay by the blue line and see how you were doing most of the games. So right. I appreciate that.
Two more quick things about the yoga thing, and then the commercial is over.
I wish we were getting sponsored.
Really. So for one thing, it's very low impact. So, your joints, a lot of traditional exercises are really hard on your joints, especially like lifting weights and a lot of the CrossFit stuff. This is very low impact on your joints. And in fact, the idea is to strengthen all parts of you. So it's great from that standpoint. The other thing, one of the big success stories from this program is a disabled veteran named Arthur Borman, who, when he started the program, he couldn't bend over. And now he's about as flexible as Dalsim from Street Fighter. So, it really does work if you stick with it. I, unfortunately, as James said, I've been doing it on and off for years, and I try to stick with it, but I always seem to fall off. And unfortunately, I've been trying to do it now, and I've been bad for the last week or week and a half. So I really have to find a way back to it. But it does work. If you keep at it, it definitely does have a huge impact on your strength, your flexibility, your wind, your cardio. It's a very beneficial program if you stay with it. You get out of it what you put into it, basically.
Excellent. And also too, I don't have a big apartment by any stretch of the imagination, and you don't need a lot of room. You just need a workout mat or a yoga mat, if you will. Like DDP says, just some water and a towel, and away you go. And it's most of the exercises, at least the first few that I've done, haven't even taken more than 25 minutes from top to bottom, from beginning to end, putting the DVD in and taking it out. That's really so. They
do get longer, James.
Sure.
I think the tougher workouts are, the higher end workouts on the whatever, however you want to describe it, are close to an hour or more. But wow. The beginning ones are like 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about it too, is that's what makes it work. You have to put the time in. And you see all these gimmicks, especially the beginning of every year in January and February, where people looking to sell these crazy, stupid, some of the equipment that they sell, the nerve of these people, really they should be thrown in prison for the lies and the stupidity that they try and rip people off with. So in terms of exercising, you can't get around the fact that you have to worry about diet, and you have to worry about doing the exercises and getting the heart rate up. So he has the full package. He has a diet that you could follow. If you want to lose weight, you could go and focus on that. If you want to gain strength, you can do that as well. So it's really adaptable, and you don't need a lot of room, not too much time either. Quite frankly, if you're going to get any kind of legitimate shape in your life, you should at least, if you're not going to be able to walk during the day or something like that, but you should, I think the minimum is something like a half hour of activity a day, as opposed to just sitting at your desk staring at a computer screen for 9 hours, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully that'll help out with the deck hockey, and I could actually put some points on the board for you, and we could win some games, I hope.
Well, we'll see. All right. That's enough. No more commercials. If Dallas wants to advertise on our show, we'll be happy to talk about it till we're blue in the face. But until then, let's move on.
Okay. All right. Time to jump on that bandwagon.
All right.
It's funny how that happens, where this is Gary's segment too. So it was his idea. And we basically almost went a year without jumping back on it. So now we got back-to-back weeks of a fun topic that we'll get into our deck hockey point of view on.
Yeah. So basically, if you are an NHL fan and you have been following the league news, then you are probably aware that the Montreal Canadiens, who are in first place, they fired pretty much out of the blue. They fired their coach, Michel Therrien, and they did that conveniently right after the Bruins fired Claude Julien, who had previously coached Montreal, and they hired, I know this coincidence is going to blow your mind, they hired Claude Julien.
What?
I know. But really, James, I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about this particular topic is the idea that a first-place team fired their coach. Now, I realize they got out to a big lead last year, and they kind of choked their way out of, any kind of playoff run. And it looks like the same thing has possibly started to happen this year. They got out to a big lead early in the season, and they have fallen on some difficult times of late. They've lost more than they've won lately. And, maybe there are the telltale signs, but both seasons they've been plagued with injuries. And I think there's, I don't know, there's something to be said for, dancing with the one that brung you, as the saying goes. I mean, this is kind of like, from, it was just Valentine's Day this week. This is kind of like dumping somebody who's maybe the spark of excitement of when you're first going out has gone out a little bit, but this is dumping somebody who's a strong, dependable mate for like the crazy ex-girlfriend that you had some great times with, but you conveniently forget that she was crazy, and or ex-boyfriend. I don't want to discriminate, but
sure,
just generally the stereotype is the crazy ex-girlfriend. So that's what I'm going to. That's the well I'm going to.
I can vouch for that,
here.
by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So this is. I don't. What do you think? Do you think that they're justified in bringing this guy back, or should they, in your opinion, James, do you think they should have hung on to Therrien, to at least given him till the end of the season to see what happens?
Yeah, again, I appreciate you getting me involved in this. I just on the outside looking in, first of all, Claude Julien, 10 years with the Bruins, with a Stanley Cup championship there and as well, and I believe he's the winningest coach in Bruins history, if I'm not mistaken, over at least that amount of time, and that's saying a lot for a very storied franchise. Mm-hmm. So, and he was fired, quote unquote, on Valentine's Day from Boston, and then all of a sudden, exactly a week later, Therrien gets axed, and then Claude Julien finds his way back behind the bench in Montreal. So I don't really get that. And it seems like it was a setup. So to answer your question, I agree, man. Gary and I are loyal guys. So we always stick with each other and give each other the benefit of the doubt. And we know how much work is put in and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm with you. I would give the man a chance to see how it goes, because a great point. I mean, they are in first place in the Atlantic Division now. We've talked about this in the past as well, and I'm sure on this podcast too, that the point system is kind of strange and not fair in the NHL, and particularly with the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils being in the Metropolitan Division, all in the same division.
Sure.
Only 3 of those teams will make the playoffs out of that. And for example, the Islanders, they fired Jack Capuano, their head coach, who I thought was really good, but I'll leave that to the Islander fans to disagree with and prove me wrong on that.
Well, if you listen to the Islander fans, they waited half a season too long to fire Capuano.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, I work with Anthony, who we mentioned last week on our podcast. He
the beloved Anthony that we appreciate so much.
Yeah, not Anthony Sajazi, Anthony Novello.
I love him too. But
he of the Hit the Deck shirt picture.
Yes.
He, I remember him saying pretty much from game 1 of the season, they need to fire this guy. And I don't think, friend of the show, Brad, I don't think he was too far behind. So, and Brad, feel free to correct us if we're wrong. But, yeah, I didn't mean to hijack the conversation with the Islanders, but yeah, I think they're at least, the Islanders had a lot of expectations after finally putting it together last year and making the playoffs, and they looked like this was them finally going through a stretch where they could take a run of a few years and maybe break through. And this year they haven't. They have not been successful like they expected to be. So firing Capuano at least was not surprising. It wasn't that surprising. This, I don't know, man. As you said, we are loyal guys. And even though I joked at the beginning of the season when we were handicapping the teams that I thought Montreal was going to miss the playoffs because I hate Montreal, I think you owe a first place coach the opportunity to right the ship and, keep his team in the hunt.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought up the Islanders was just for this reason that they have been playing very well when Waite took over, and now they are in wild card contention. But with the problem with the point system is that they're in the Metropolitan Division.
Yes. And
the New York Rangers, who have been having a pretty good season, and believe me, the Rangers are playing the Islanders as we're speaking, by the way, at the recording of this podcast. But
well, not anymore. At the current moment, the Rangers have just lost to the Islanders.
Okay. So there you go. So just as a point that the Rangers are currently leading the wild card in the Atlantic Division at 75 points. And that's because the Washington Capitals have 84 points. The Pittsburgh Penguins and Columbus Blue Jackets have 77 points. So they're the top three teams of the Metropolitan Division and are guaranteed playoff spots. At the recording of this podcast, these are the points. So with the Islanders being hot and now getting 2 more points, as a matter of fact, they trail the Rangers by 13 points. So I believe the wild card, are you only allowed 1 wild card in each division? So the Islanders can only represent the Metropolitan, if I'm not mistaken.
I honestly don't remember. I thought it was just the next 2 got the wild card spots, but I could be wrong about that.
I hope that's the case because, Toronto currently has 63 points. So now that the Islanders are 1 point behind them, up to date as we record. So the bottom line is that Gary said, going back to his original point, that Montreal is leading the Atlantic Division at 70 points, and then Ottawa and Boston are right behind them at 64 points, and then Toronto at 63. So if they lose a little bit more ground, they could be on the outside looking in from the get-go. So hopefully for the Islanders and the Devils and, I don't like the Flyers, but, Florida and those teams that are all in the Metropolitan Division, maybe they still have a chance at making the postseason. So that's the whole other issue there. So with Montreal, I agree. I would have stayed with, like Gary so appropriately said, you dance with the one that brung you, and we all go down together and all that, all for one for all. So in a hotbed of hockey, which is Montreal, I guess their patience wore thin, and they were just kind of afraid to have deja vu all over again. But it just seems very strange to me that their go-to coach, who was an incredible success in Boston 7 days before, becomes available, and then their current guy, Terrien, just gets axed a week later. So really weird.
Yeah, I mean, look, bottom line, Montreal is a results town, especially where hockey is concerned. And, hockey is like a religion there. So it's possible that they had been keeping an eye on things all along and said, things are starting to go the way they went last season. And rather than take a chance on everything going south again with the trade deadline coming up, we want to get a new coach in here now if we can, and hopefully we can right the ship before it's too late. It's possible that they've been thinking along these lines for a while, but the timing of this whole thing just seems suspicious. It's like they saw Julia and they were like, "Oh, Claude, come save us. We miss you." And they looked for an excuse to fire Tyrion. That's how I'm reading it. I could be way off base, but that's just how I'm seeing it.
Well, from hockey fans from other cities, that's how it looks like from us. So sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. So, we brought up the WWE a couple times tonight, and that seems like a plot from the WWE.
Yeah. All right. And, before we jump off the bandwagon, James, I know this isn't on our official on deck rundown, but I want to bring this up too, since we're in the NHL bandwagon mode. This is just something that's happened the last couple days. So if you haven't been following the NHL's disciplinary rulings in the last couple days, yesterday, Ducks player Antoine Vermette was suspended. He was handed an automatic 10-game suspension for slashing a linesman. He basically what happened is the linesman dropped the puck on a face-off before Vermette was ready. He felt like that was not fair, and he just kind of gave he reached out off balance and gave the linesman a quick slash on the back of his. It was really a hard tap on the back of his leg to let him know, listen, that wasn't okay. And yeah, I get the rule that, you have to protect your officials. Look, the meathead fan in me wants to say it's not fair that these referees and officials can make bad calls and suffer no retribution. But I understand that not just hockey, all sports, they need to be able to protect their officials. The officials need to be able to make calls without fear of retribution from players, because, you can't have players intimidating officials into making a call one way or the other, because that's just anarchy. So I understand from a protecting the sanctity of your sport, blah, 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 you have to have some kind of rule in place to prevent this kind of thing. But 10 games is a lot for something that was basically just a show of frustration and didn't actually wind up hurting the official in any way.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did see the clip of it, and I agree. You described it perfectly. He gave a tap with the blade of his stick as he was skating by, and if you wanted to really be a jerk, he could have tripped the linesman. He could have done a lot worse things, or even Lord knows what else. So it was just kind of like hey, you screwed up there, buddy, and don't do it again. But yeah, I'm not going to, I'll play devil's advocate here too, despite being a Ranger fan. But sorry for the corny joke.
That's okay.
But it's, you have to, like in baseball, if the umpire gets bumped by a player, intentional or not, like even if the bill of managers have gotten thrown out of baseball games because the bridge of their cap hit the umpire unintentionally because they get in their faces and they're yelling, and that's an automatic ejection.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to derail the conversation, but that's something that really does bother me. Sometimes the umpires get right up in the manager's face or the player's face, and sometimes they can be the cause of the contact being initiated. Absolutely. And then the manager or the player still gets ejected and, fined and or suspended because of it.
Absolutely.
And that's just nonsense.
Right.
That's some nonsense right there.
Exactly. And that goes back to your original point too, is that the Duck player, it was something that was just kind of a warning shot, if you will. And he did show a lot of restraint, especially if you see the highlight. I'm sure you could probably Google it or whatever the case is. And if you're not really looking for it. And another thing, too, is you can't get away with anything anymore.
No.
Like the song said, the night has 1,000 eyes. Now the night has 1 billion eyes because everybody has cell phones with video, and the camera angles on sports are all over the place. If it's hockey, if it's baseball, you're getting all these different cameras. You're getting arena cams that are always going and are always in different places. So you can't get away with anything. So I think he realized that, and okay, fine. The league wants to make sure that their system stays into effect, and exactly, you don't want chaos, but there should be a case-by-case basis, And I hope, and they are fighting the ban too, because 10 games, you're right, man. I mean, in hockey, especially this time of year, they're in the midst of a postseason run. I don't know how good or bad the player is or whatever the case is, but that's pretty significant.
But this whole thing,
I thought a bit extreme.
Sorry. I'm sorry to run you over there, but what I was going to say, this whole thing goes back to what the conversation we had last week about passion in sports. Because obviously or at least obvious to me, what I believe that the reason why Vermette slashed the official is because he was upset about what he felt was an unfair face-off. As you said, this time of year, every little bit can count. These games and the points that go with them can turn on a dime. He was probably just upset that he felt like he was cheated out of an opportunity to win the face-off, and he just let his frustration get the best of him, and he tapped the official. This was against Minnesota Wild, by the way, that was the team on the other side of the face-off. And conversely, he got a 10-game suspension for that. Conversely, also coincidentally against the Minnesota Wild, today, it was handed down that Detroit player Gustav Nyquist, he, in a game against, as I said, the Minnesota Wild, basically he was in a scrum where he was fighting for the puck, and the Wild player, Jared Spurgeon, he cross-checks him in the back from behind. Now, I want to say right up front, that's not cool. It's not okay that he decided to just cross-check him from behind, but this is something that happens literally all the time in hockey. This is nothing new. He wasn't in a vulnerable position where, he could be boarded or he could be really severely injured from that cross-check. It was a jerk move on Spurgeon's part, but it's part of the game. But Nyquist didn't see it that way. His reaction to this is to get up, set himself, spin around, and basically try and dig the blade of his stick up under Spurgeon's face mask. And he got him on his cheek about halfway between his eye and his mouth. I mean, this happened like that. So he probably, his aim probably wasn't that precise. It was precise enough to know where he wanted the stick to go, but not precise enough to say, hey, I'm going to make sure I don't blind this guy. You don't try and get the stick up under the guy's mask just to send a message. You want to hurt somebody at that point.
Yeah, and that's something. The rules are there. You're responsible for your stick. And we remind each other that all the time when we're playing deck as well, because a lot of times the sticks will go up and none of us wear masks. Maybe we should, but that could be really dangerous. And like we said, for next week when we talk about the anniversary of the movie Slapshot, there's even a character in there that claims that he could poke a guy's eye out, carve a guy's eye out with the blade of a stick. So I did, before we went on air, before we recorded, I should say, tonight, watching the Ranger Islander game, they showed that Nyquist's Spurgeon, play again. And what happened was Nyquist, yes, he went up too high, and that's inexcusable. But if you look at the replay, Nyquist said that, and it's true, his elbow was hit on the boards there, and that completely changed the trajectory of his stick. So that's how he was able to go under the mask and hit Spurgeon like that. And it was inexcusable and it was dangerous, but he did not mean to do that much damage or go to the face. So
yeah,
I'm
James,
sure that,
respectfully, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one.
Okay.
He said that his intent was to pull his stick around and cross-check Spurgeon back. But if you look at his eyes and the way that he contorts his body when he pulls that stick around, I believe that he meant to do some damage. And if you disagree, that's fine. We can disagree, but you're not going to convince me otherwise.
Oh, no, absolutely. He was looking to hurt, no question. But I don't think, and if you watch the replay again, from what I saw, and again, I just saw this once. I didn't see it happen and all that stuff. So if
I
completely
didn't see it happen either. I just saw the alert and I looked into it.
But it did jive where his elbow was affected, and that did in turn affect where the blade of the stick went. But yeah, hockey blades are dangerous. They you could do a lot of damage with them. You could talk about scars. You could really knock teeth out. You can gouge out eyes, or worse. Or if there is anything worse than that, you could probably even cut somebody's neck a little bit, or whatever the case is. I mean, we've seen that happen with skates, where players have gotten cut pretty severely because of those. So it's a no-no. You rule the thumb when you're playing hockey is you always keep the stick on the ice because you want to make a play. But the other thing is that you never bring up a stick, because in the past there have been some major damage done from players that didn't wear before they wore helmets, swinging sticks around, and strong guys on skates swinging these hockey sticks like clubs. You can really do major damage to somebody. So they don't tolerate that at all. So you're right, man. I mean, the fact that Nyquist came up with the stick at all is kind of like when you get in a car accident. If the front of your car is hurt, you're wrong automatically, because you're supposed to be responsible of having enough area between you and the car in front of you, for example. So once you kind of hit that red alert aspect, then intentional or not, you got to pay the consequences.
Sure, but the reason I bring up this whole thing is because, Vermette got a 10-game suspension for giving a linesman a love tap with a stick. Nyquist, for coming that close to taking a guy's eye out, intentional or not, he got 6 games. Now, I mean, I'm sorry. If you are that reckless with your stick, regardless of what the circumstances are, you should get more than a 6-game suspension. Because, that's the league always says when they're ruling on these things that whether or not the person was injured, it shouldn't weigh into the decision. And you can't, I'm sorry, you can't be that reckless with your stick and get such a light ban literally a day after the league hands out a 10-game ban, almost double the amount of games suspended just for, having the audacity to touch an official. I forget what the term they used was, but basically it was a 10-game suspension for assaulting an official. Like, come on.
Wait. They consider that assault?
I don't remember if that's I don't remember if that's the exact term they used, but that was the gist of it. It was, basically endangering an official or something to that effect.
Your point is absolutely 100% correct, because and I think the other point that we're trying to, at least I'm trying to make here, is that you take it on a case-by-case basis. So excellent observation. Both of these things happening in front of everybody's eyes and a day apart just so happened. But yeah, Nyquist deserved at least the 10-game suspension for, the movie we're going to talk about in a little while too, talk about Marty McSorley a few years ago, that he off the ice got in trouble. It was he had court time and charges brought up against him for hitting somebody with the stick and knocking him out. So yeah, that should be, and especially with the NHL is so sensitive with concussions now, that if you're cross-checked and things, it's kind of like an automatic don't do that. So things being equal, at minimum, yeah, Vermette, maybe if he should get any suspension, 3 games or something, I think would be more than reasonable, because he did show restraint, and he did kind of stand there a little bit in the face-off circle when he wasn't ready for the drop of the puck, and that's shame on the linesman for that, man. Let's be honest. So to just get him where he knew he wasn't going to hurt him, he knew he wasn't going to hurt the linesman. He wasn't going to trip him. He could have done all nasty things to him, even rush him or something, but he did not. So exactly, take it on a case-by-case basis. I understand you have to protect your referees and linesmen, but if they're human, they make mistakes as well. And if anything, Vermette should be kind of commended in a way for showing restraint and having such a little example of like a love tap, for lack of a better term, as opposed to Nyquist, who, intentional or not, brought his stick up. And anytime you bring that blade to the neck area or above, that's you should not be playing in the NHL, quite frankly. They don't tolerate that nonsense, and nobody should. Hockey or anything else.
Sorry, James. I have looked it up, and the official infraction that he committed was applying physical force to an official without intent to injure.
And that's 10 games?
That's 10 games. So,
okay. Then get your money's worth then.
But this is my point. This is exactly my point here. So the department that makes these rulings is literally called the Department of Player Safety. But my question is the NHL more concerned with making sure that it doesn't look bad, that it takes care of its own image, than it is with taking care of the actual players that play in its league? Because, I mean, this isn't the first time something like this has happened where, I mean, think back to when Sean Avery got his, like half-season suspension or whatever for using a bad word in the locker room.
Yeah.
They're so hypocritical when it comes to these suspensions. They say like, you have these people, these players, they're role models and they have to set a good example. So, we take that very seriously. You think these guys are setting a pretty good example when they take swipes at people's heads with their sticks, or, they charge at somebody who's defenseless from halfway across the ice and board them into a, concussion or worse? Where's the line? I said this last week when we were talking about Charles Oakley and being that guy. Where's the line? It comes to a point where you have to set aside the optics and address the actual tangible risks that are happening in the game. And I just think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, I'll get down off my soapbox now. But hey, if you have an opinion about this, or if you agree with me, or if you agree with James about, Nyquist's intentions, or if you have an opinion about whether or not the Department of Player Safety is hypocritical or doing enough or what have you, weigh in on our Facebook page. Start a conversation. We'd love to know what you think, whether we're right on track or whether we're way off base. And, maybe we can all learn something. If nothing else, we can argue on the internet. Because isn't that what the internet's for?
Absolutely. And telling the truth, that's what the internet's for.
Speaking of the internet, it seems to me that there is a delightful hockey film that you can watch on Amazon Prime, and James is going to tell us all about that.
Yeah, and it's going to tie in everything that we were just talking about as well.
I can't wait.
The life and times of, and he's still going strong. He just turned 59, as a matter of fact, on February 9th. Chris Nyland. So if you're a hockey fan that grew up in the, or at least if you were a hockey fan in the 80s through early 90s, you know Chris Nyland very well. He came up through the Montreal Canadiens, and again, speaking of that franchise before, and his role was strictly an enforcer. So the game was much different 20-some years ago, where each team did have a goon, if you will, that was designated to protect the quote-unquote star players.
But not the goon from
not right.
The WWF.
Right, yeah, that embarrassment. But so Nyland came from that, and the name of the documentary is called The Last Gladiators, because that's basically what they were. They were.
I love that show.
Yeah, these are more like Roman gladiators, though. But anyway, they were basically paid to fight, and they had
ice, laser.
I don't remember their silly names, but I love that show. I'm sorry. Please continue. I could go on with this all night, and I shouldn't. So just
hey, while you're on Amazon Prime, maybe you could watch some old episodes of American Gladiators. I don't know. Check it out. But anyway,
although just speaking of gladiators and American Gladiators in particular, Mike Adamle, who was the co-host of American Gladiators, was just diagnosed with, well, actually, I don't know if he was just diagnosed, but it just came out that he had, he exhibits the signs of CTE, which is the kind of the brain injury that a lot of football players and contact sport athletes have started to show, which basically it really messes up your brain. It's the result of a lot of concussions and hard hits, and it results in dementia and in some cases violent behavior, and it's not cool. It basically is. It's not cool, is what I'm saying. So, Mike Adamle, for all of the entertainment that you've given us over the years, and really just as a human being, I wish you well, and I hope that you can maybe not recover, but I hope that you can deal with this and still lead a full and long life.
Yeah, amen. And that kind of goes in with the Chris Nyland story as well, because he goes through Lord knows how many scars he's had, how many operations he's had. So his nickname was Knuckles. And basically every game he had a target on his back, and guys like him in the time, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the name Bob Probert. And Ranger fans, we all know Ty Domi. It's funny because Domi and Nyland were so similar. They were not the tallest of men, but they had heart and bravery, and they were strong as oxes, and they could fight. So it was funny that Nyland did play for the Rangers a brief time after he was with the Canadians and won a Stanley Cup with them in '86. But he just missed being teammates with Domi, and then Domi took over. But both of them had run-ins with Bob Probert, because Probert was, I believe, the majority of his career, at least from what I remember, he was with the Detroit Red Wings. A big man, like 6'3", 225 pounds, built like a truck. And he was probably the enforcer of all enforcers. So we've seen many a fight between he and Domi as Ranger fans. Chris Nyland and he tangled a lot, and other guys like those men. But the point is that Chris Nyland had a tough life. He loved hockey. He really enjoyed playing. He was a good player too. He had a couple of seasons when he had about 20-something goals and would put up maybe 30 to 60 points or so at the height of his career.
That's not bad.
No, not at all. But he wasn't given the opportunity. He was just labeled the enforcer, and that was it. And he was a great team player. He bought into the whole Montreal Canadiens. If you mention his name in Montreal, people love him and appreciate what a great teammate he was and a great player he was. But unfortunately, all the consequences to that, the pressure of having to fight every night, no matter what your condition was, if you were hurt, if you were under the weather, you had to perform. And and keeping up that machismo, it weighs on you so much. And these guys are human beings. So the documentary really went into that pretty deeply. Speaking of diseases and consequences of head injuries and stuff, Bob Probert, and they mentioned this in the documentary as well, he was only 45 years old, and he passed away in 2010 in July, so almost 7 years ago. And hockey players are in phenomenal shape. So I think it was all related to concussions and the hard life of being an enforcer, I believe. But I'm sure that would tie in with Nyland's story as well. As he retired from hockey, he tried doing some other things to bring in income, like he tried phone sales and things. And, for a guy like that, that's not jiving.
Yeah.
He did try and get to coaching, and he was with the Devils at one point too, as an assistant coach, but it just wasn't for him. So then he got into alcoholism, he got into painkillers, and that same slippery slope. And hopefully he's back on the straight and narrow now and clean, and he does appearances and tries to help others and make sure that the same mistakes that were made to him don't happen to anyone else. And it's a really fascinating documentary. And if you're a hockey fan, I think you'd enjoy it. It is it's mature situations and things and some harsh language, and it's very realistic. But if you're a hockey fan and if you have children that want to be hockey players, it's a really good lifelong lesson to watch and observe. So I recommend it.
That's great, James. Thank you. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Cool.
Last minute remaining in the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Pops. Okay, so we hope you enjoyed this particular episode of Hit the Deck, episode 46, where we actually talked an awful lot about injuries and, the resultant effects of them, which was a nice little unexpected cohesive theme. Please join us next week for the trade deadline, where we may actually do a little chatting about said NHL trade deadline. And what, you may ask, does the NHL trade deadline have to do with a podcast about deck hockey? Hopefully we'll figure something out. We have a week. Hopefully we can find some way to connect those two things. But in the meantime, thank you again for listening to us. Thank you so very much. We really do appreciate you. Spread the word. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider subscribing on iTunes or Stitcher. We encourage you to email us at hitthedeck@gmail.com to continue the conversation, or hit us up on our Facebook page at Hit the Deck. Reminder, Instagram at Hit the Deck is going to feature my silly fist injury, but it might be worth a look just because, it might be worth a chuckle. We, of course, besides thanking you, which we do every single episode, we would also like to thank Pops for being the voice of the podcast, Anthony Sajazi for music used in the podcast, the LIQ for sound effects, and we also want to thank all of the great, NHL players that we've been talking about who've given us fodder for half of our podcast. And I don't know, I'm reaching here, but really, I just don't want to leave anybody out. Thank you to DDP for coming up with a great program that is being beneficial to both of us and could be to you too if you want to give it a try. We really should try to get sponsored or something. Hey, if you want to sponsor the Hit the Deck podcast, hit us up at hitthedeck@gmail.com and we'll shill for you all day. We have no shame. I don't know. Anyway, James, please save me. What have I forgotten? What would you like to interject?
Thanks for listening, and see you next time, guys.
All right, well said. Well said, sir. Okay, so that being said, I would, of course, just like to give you one final reminder, whether you've been screwed on a face-off or cross-checked from behind or had some other ignominious infraction visited upon you, possibly when you're playing the Minnesota Wild, I would remind you, probably not, because I am, of course, going to remind you that it's deck hockey. Don't be that guy. Thanks, everybody. Oh, I hope somebody enjoys this nonsense.
I do.
All right. I hope somebody else enjoys this nonsense.
The more the merrier.
Yeah, of course.
You're doing something right.
Yeah, all right. If you say so.